Good morning, Brant Phillips. How are you, brother?
Good, my friend. How are you?
Very good. So, how's the weather down there? You're near Plano, Texas, right?
Now, I'm in Houston, so I'm about 4 hours south of Plano. I grew up around Plano, but I'm down in Houston, Texas, dude. It's like 100 degrees. It's humid. It's muggy, but I love it. I'll take the heat over the cold any day.
Yeah, absolutely. We just finally hit summer about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, I love your weather, and you and I have
Yeah.
been talking. It's been cold here while you and I have known each other.
Yeah.
So, Brant, you've got a lot of experience. You come from a very unique history in real estate, and you're an author of a book. You wrote the book Private Lending, the Private Lending Playbook. So if you haven't heard about Brant Phillips and the Private Lending Playbook, this is literally a book designed to help people learn how to lend and to help people learn how to borrow money. It's kind of this pseudo perfect solution. So I want to dive into this in a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but before we get into it, how did you get into real estate? Like what drove you to get into real estate? Because you're an investor as well.
Well, I was broke. I was broke.
Love
That,
it.
that was number one. Number two, honestly, it was the main thing that drew me to real estate was actually not money. I know that's a lot of people's main thing. That was like number two for me. Dude, I hated my job, man. Like
Yeah.
I was like a corporate, freaking clone, and I couldn't stand it. I hated it. And I remember my first day in corporate America. It was previously 7 years in law enforcement, which has really negative stigma now. I'm saying that, but
Wow.
I was proud to be an officer for 7 years, but I didn't play politics, and I had to get out. So, and my wife and I started having our first child, and now we have five, but I had my first child, and just the politics. Yeah, man, I like to flip houses and buy rentals. My wife's like, I want a bunch of kids. I'm like, all right, I better
Well, we're
buy
gonna
more
need more
houses.
rentals and houses to
Yeah, we need
justify.
more rentals, more houses. Right, exactly. And so, how what kind of led to me getting into real estate was I'm like, what am I going to do? And the grass is always green on the other side. So I went into the corporate world, had no desire to do it, but I'm like, well, I got to provide for my family. I went to that job. I remember the very first day I came home, my wife's like, hey babe, how was it? She's all excited. I've got this normal 9 to 5, yada, yada, yada. And I remember just like processing the question, how do I respond? How was my day on the job? I'm like, I think I hate it actually. But I was like, but don't worry, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to provide for the family. But I remember telling her, I was like, I'm going to find something else. And it took me 2 years to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I would look at something. I did like this little eBay business for a while and looked at franchising, and then I would stop looking. It just kind of I was fighting off the resistance to just be complacent with the job, right? But
Right.
I knew in my heart like this wasn't for me, and so I was very fortunate, to find, learn about real estate and read Rich Dad Poor Dad, all that kind of stuff, and the rest is history, so to speak. But when I got started, my wife and I, we were still fairly newlyweds, been married a few years, and we had we got married with bad debt. We didn't know any other kind of debt, and
Nice.
like, what is good debt?
Yep.
We had student loans. We thought that was good debt.
It sounded good at the time.
Oh God! Before Kiyosaki came into our lives, right? So we had student loans, we had credit cards, all this kind of stuff. So when I decided I wanted to become a real estate investor, my wife's like, how are you going to do that? We don't have any money. We're living in an apartment, yada, yada, no business experience. So that,
Right.
that was where I started, literally broke. But just, I'll tell people I had a dream and a drive, and people
Yeah.
like, and I get started in real estate. I'm like, dude, if you got the dream and you've got the drive and you're willing to just kind of work your ass off and hustle and grind and not quit when you hit, setbacks and deals go sideways, then
Yeah.
yeah, you can. If you're not willing to do that, then probably no, you can't.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
that's consistent across just about any business.
Yep.
But real estate is a very specific business with a very long learning curve.
Yep.
And so I'm sure getting into it, it wasn't just slam dunk every single time. What was your first deal? What did it look like? And what were some of the things going through your head as you did it?
Yeah. So, I am very much, entrepreneur ADD. Like I want to chase rabbits and squirrels and do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew that about myself going into real estate. So I myself, and I was very, very disciplined year one, where I told myself I'm only going to do one thing.
Powerful.
And there was a very influential networking group here in the Houston market, and they focus only on rental property,
Yep.
passive income property, single family houses, and multifamily. Multifamily just wasn't even on my radar. So I'm like, they told me that I can buy single family homes, and I did have good credit. That was the one thing that working for me. So I focused just on single family houses. I told my wife, said I'm going to buy 10 rental properties this year. That was that was basically how I told her I was going to get into real estate. I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy 10 rental properties. What? I don't know how she bust out laughing at me, but I bought this white poster board, stuck it on our apartment wall, and I figured it out. My first deal, to answer your question, was a wholesaler. Met a local wholesaler, and we became very, very good friends. Ended up buying 50, 60 houses from this guy over the years, and it was a single family rental property. I used my credit card. I had to have some type of a down payment, earnest money. I used one of those credit card checks.
Yep.
Grand, closed on the deal, and my first rehab went really well. I did all the right things.
Yeah.
I mean, I had like a turnkey general contractor, vetted them out, and it went really well. And long story short, I was able to do 10 deals my first year while still working my job, and that was how I first got into real estate.
So that's crazy. So you actually start off the right way. Use the credit card as a down payment. Where was this house? Was this in Houston where you live now, or was this a different community, different state?
It was in Houston.
It was in
Yep.
Houston. What was the price of the house? What did it look like?
It was around a $50,000 house. I think it was about
Wow.
$45,000. We did $18,000 in rehab, and at that point in time, it was worth about $85,000 or so.
Wow. And the
It was,
prices in Houston are,
yeah, cookie cutter bread and butter deal. Now this was 13 years ago. That I recently did another deal on that same street, just a few houses down. Recently, about 2.5 years ago, and I sold that one, very minimal rehab. I forget what I bought it for, around 60. Did 20 or so in rehab, and I sold that one with owner financing. I love owner financing.
same man. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why we buy property, right? So we can owner finance. Like that's the whole point.
Do what the banks do. I mean, I believe in holding, for passive and for long-term wealth as things appreciate. But I want a sustainable model, and I think a big way we do that is diversify, right? Not diversify in stocks, bonds. Is like diversify. I'm a big believer in diversifying our real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
I have rentals. I still flip to this day. I have my owner finance notes. I got my mobile home parks. Of course, what we're doing, with the brokerage side of things at EXP as well, is just another income stream with equity. So I'm a big believer in diversifying your real estate portfolio.
You know what I love about you, Brant, is you're not blind to just rental property, not blind to just flips, not just wholesaling. You see the full picture of this, and more so than most people that I've had the conversation with, you see not just the end game, which is seller financing. You've been open enough to attach agency to it as well. And agency is a stream of income that really, even Than Merrill talks about it. Every real estate investor has the ability to add to their portfolio, and then seller financing is that. It's our end game. You don't just want to end with rental property. You want to end with somebody else managing your rental property, and you get paid. How did you come to that conclusion?
Man, I got real burned out on my rentals. And the story with how I really found out about owner financing was I was walking a make ready with my contractors, and I had several make readies that year. And dude, they're just depressing, you know? And so I went and met with my contractors, and I'm looking at what the tenant done. And it was nothing like, I've never had a horrible experience with tenants in terms of them just like destroying a property. But God, I've had some filthy people, man. You know, they trash carpets and the walls are all dirty. You know, $10,000 is not, you know, I've done that multiple times. Like, we got to paint everything. We've got to do carpet, yada, yada, yada. And you drop 10 grand, there goes 2 or 3 years of cash flow right there.
Right.
You know, on some of my properties. And so I was walking it with my my contractors, and I'm like, damn, you know, kind of like frustrated. And I made some kind of comment, you know, my painter, who said something, I don't remember what it was. This was 7-8 years ago. And he's like, well, this is going to be a nice house, you know, don't worry. I'm like, well, you know, if you like it so much, why don't you buy it? And he's like, can I do that? You know, I was like, figure that out. And I found an attorney who specialized in seller financing, drew up the docs, boom. He traded a little sweat equity. I bought the paint, carpet. He did all the rest. He still owns that property to this day. He is not refinanced out. I did the same thing. I did 2 that year. I did 2 the next year. Dude, if we got time, I'll tell you a story about how all this came into play. So I've owner financed 4 houses over a 2-year period, and 3 out of 4 just to my contractors. And I still have all those notes today with the exception of one actually refinanced. I've only had 2 ever refinance. So I did that a couple times, and I was like, all right, this got me out of a crunch. It's passive now. I have a third-party escrow company. Things are going great. The next year, I did a couple more times, and I had this property that was $350,000. And around 2011, 2012, for me, that's you know, that's much higher than our median price housing here.
Oh yeah.
And it wouldn't sell. And I told my agent, I said, hey, go ahead and put it out with owner financing, see what we get. And right away, we got a full price offer, $70,000 down payment. Now that doesn't happen every time, but it happened this. So I used $70K to pay off, reduce what I owed my private lender. So I had a note essentially with my buyer for $270,000, 8.5% interest, and I owe my private lender 7% at $210,000. So it was a really nice cash flow. And I did a couple more deals like that. And so this is probably about year 4. I had about 10 owner finance properties. And this is kind of a humbling story to share with you that I'm going to share with you, but I'm going to share it. So my wife and I are sitting down end of the year, and my wife is not very active in the business, and we've got 5 kids, right? We say we do workshops together. I work, she shops, you know how it works. And
I love it.
so we're sitting down, but my wife is very she is like motivational, from like very supportive, encourages me. I'd say naively encourages me sometimes, like, well, I think I'm gonna do this. She's like, you can do it, I believe in you. I'm like, you do? Because I think it's a good idea. And I married I know you're East Coast. I married a Philly girl, so she's from the streets of Philly, so she's got a little street, little edge to her too, you know. Nope. And so we're sitting down and reviewing, like, hey, here's what business did this year and setting next year's goals. So I was like, all right, here's our rental portfolio. Here's what that looks like. Here's how many flips that we did. You know, here's my coaching business and what that did this year. And I'm like, you know, and kind of like, oh, by the way, here's these owner finance deals. And I just kind of glossed over it, going to the next thing. And she's like, whoa. She's like, how does that work? She's like, I don't think you've ever explained that to me. How does the owner financing work? And I was like, well, let me try to explain this to you. And I explained to her, it's like, you know, the rentals that we have, right? Well, it's kind of like that. And I like, what I did with a lot of my rentals, I just converted them to owner finance. And I'm like, so how it explains, it's a little bit like a rental because I get cash flow. Like, you know, it's very passive. I'm like, matter of fact, they don't call me for repairs. I've got a third-party escrow company that handles everything, the payments. I just get ACH every month. I'm like, but it's a little bit like a flip because I get some cash too on the size, you know, on their down payment. And I'm like, it's just like, I'm like, honestly, these people I've sold these houses to, I don't even know some of them. And I get money every month. Like I haven't missed a payment, late fees, everything.
Right.
Anyways, let's talk about this. She's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why don't you just do that? And
Yep.
I was like, that's a good question. So you've probably heard of Mitch Stephen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't know him, but I reached out to Mitch and met with Mitch. We went on vacation, he did like a real estate investor vacation. And I was like, all right, so I just got more focused on it. I've just been very hesitant, to put all my eggs in one real estate basket.
Right.
And, but I do believe in diversifying, like when this whole COVID thing came out, I've got a lot of rentals and I was like, not sure what that was going to look like. And I
I
got
know.
very, nervous. Right.
Yep.
And it's all gone well, but I still have my owner finance deals. They just got to pay,
Yep.
they don't have to, but anyways, I just felt very well insulated. So.
Yeah, I like that. And it's part of the business. Diversification, I believe in it as long as it's within real estate. I don't like the concept, wow, look at the size of that water bottle, man. That's how they drink water in Houston. They have like the 3-liter water bottle.
It's bigger in Texas, man.
That's awesome. And diversity, like people say, oh, should I diversify? And to me, I say absolutely not. In the
Yeah.
beginning of your business anyway, right? Like go and just make some money, then you diversify to protect, right? But you've actually found a way to diversify and increase income. We call it alchemy, right? You've found a way to actually turn every single step of the deal into a source of income. Where did you realize you were doing that? Like at what point did you realize, oh my God, I'm doing a deal. I'm no longer just getting paid when I sell the property later on?
Well, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, and I'm a big believer, like yourself, and just continually learning and growing. I learn something new almost every day in real estate, and something I learned from Stephen Covey was just continually sharpen the saw, right?
Yep.
And so I don't think you're going to be very successful in real estate if you add a new strategy to your arsenal every single month.
Right.
But every year to 2 years, I think you need to take a look at other investment opportunities. And that's kind of just what I've done, where I got laser beam with rentals. I had about 25 rentals. And when I quit my job, and I was like, all right, I get it. And this is what I teach my students. It's like, look, what you need to do is kind of put the blinders on, focus on one thing until you have enough data experience, and you assess it like, hey, is this working? Is it not working? Is it sustainable? Is it something I want to keep doing? And you basically become, I guess I'll use the word expert, like where you get really, really good at something where you can automate it, systematize it, train your team to do it, and then you add on another income stream, another investment type of deal. And that's what I did. I started with rentals, and then I realized, hey, these are going to be great for my long-term wealth, but
One
they're
day.
not. Yeah, they're not paying the bills. And that's, we know where I was buying highly leveraged rental properties that were $100 to $300 a month.
Yep.
And so I kind of got misled a little bit, to be honest with you. My first mentor, I'm like, hey, appreciate the hell of out of the guy because he's helped me create wealth, but I'm gonna treat my rental property for what it is, long-term wealth creation. So I decided, hey, I'm not gonna live off of these rental properties, and I'm gonna find active income. Right? There's active and there's passive, and I don't care who you are in real estate. You're working for some active income of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So I was watching those, how to flip a house shows, and Armando Montalongo and Fan
Yep.
Merrill. And I'm like, all right, I got to try this. And tried it, lost money on my first deal. It was horrible and almost didn't do it again. I was like, all right, rentals are my comfort zone. I'm just going to go back to that. And my second house that I flipped, I made over $60,000 in 60 days exactly.
Wow.
And I was on the juice, man. I was hooked. And so I focused on that for a few years, and then people started asking me to speak and teach and coach. So I started doing that, and that kind of layered that on. Then the owner financing thing, and that, so it's just been layers. Every
Yeah.
1 to 2 years, I'll be like, I'll meet somebody. I'm like, they seem really smart. They seem successful. Let me, get some mentorship. Let me talk to them. And I remember 2 years ago, I was in a mastermind, and these guys that I was mastermind with, they have a similar business there in California. They were doing about 40 to 50 investment deals a year, but they mentioned that they started, things were shifting years ago from a buyer's market to a seller's market. And they started saying, hey, we're noticing we're not converting as many of our motivated seller leads to accept a cash offer. So there's pretty sharp dudes. So they had basically began just interweaving that conversation about, hey, we understand you may not want a cash offer. Would you like to talk about listing your property? So they had exceeded the amount of listings that they were doing off their motivated seller leads to where they're buying 40 to 50 investment deals a year, but they listed 65 houses that previous year.
Right.
And I was like kicking myself under the table because we were not even having that conversation. And I had actually deactivated my real estate license about 1.5 years before that. Even though I had been licensed for 8-9 years, I deactivated it because I had a full-time agent on staff. I wasn't using it. It wasn't creating wealth, wasn't creating passive income. So I was like, I don't need this. So I heard that conversation. I was like, we have to start monetizing our leads. And then within a few weeks later, I met Connor Steinbrook for the first time, and
Yep.
I was like, all right, if that's not, God or the universe or whatever speaking to me, like I need to get focused on this. So we've added, later on the realty side of things as well. I'm working with agents. Yeah.
And since we're talking about it, Connor Steinbrook is somebody I just interviewed this week as well, and he speaks highly of you, Brant, and what you've created. And for him, he's got this massive team of real estate and 400 people under him who are out there transacting every day. And I think he came to the same conclusion you came to, the same conclusion I came to, is because I was an agent, I was a licensed agent, I was going on 100 appointments a year, doing a lot of it for other investors, and every so often I take a deal for myself. And I started realizing every 10 appointments, I was getting a deal for me. Every 3 appointments was a listing. So just by maintaining that listing, you're getting 3 times as much or 2 times more than what you'd get. And it eventually adds up to a deal, right? You keep doing that. 10 of those listings adds up to what a deal would have been. And so it became this awareness that there's more out there. And when I've done the same thing as you, came so close to getting rid of my license, but instead built a team, so shifted all the work over, so automated it. And that becomes, it's what you said earlier, you learn it, you do it, and then you teach it to somebody else, you delegate, you get really good at it, and you become the expert, and you teach it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so that's how you create multiple streams of income. You didn't do it overnight. You built it a couple of years at a time, focusing hard on one thing, and then focusing hard on the next thing and the next thing. And what's cool with Connor, in our interview, I found that speed was really his strength. He talks about speed all the time, speed of acquisition, speed of disposition, speed of action and idea, and speed of implementation. And speed was his thing. And just from a few minutes of talking to you already, I think that actual focus is your thing. Your ability to focus is what gives you strength. So speaking about focusing, you got really focused on lenders. How did you come up with the idea to write the Private Lender Playbook? Because this book is like, I've not finished it, but going through it, I feel like it's like an encyclopedia of exactly what you can do to make somebody either more comfortable or to make sure that you're doing the deal the right way, so you're not in any way disadvantaged when you're financing deals. What made you decide you were going to teach this and write a book on it?
Yeah. Well, just like you're saying, agree with everything you said about Connor. Like Connor is speed. Even the way he talks, I'm like, Connor, you got to talk slower, man. I'm like, kind of, slow Texas guy here. But Connor's great. He's awesome. He's taught me a lot since we've been working together. Yeah. So with the book, so many years ago, it's probably going back, 8-9 years now, at least. I started speaking. A friend of mine, invited me to do a boot camp, a workshop, whatever you want to call it, like a 2-day kind of thing years ago. And I'm like, dude, I don't think anybody wants to listen to me. I had not done that much. And
Imposter syndrome.
yeah, like I had a great time. And I'm a quiet guy. I was a very shy kid growing up and reserved. And we did that workshop, and I was almost sometimes feel more comfortable on a stage than I do like, in small, environments. It's kind of strange, but so I spoke that week. I was like, man, this was great. Like, I loved it. I had fun, made a little bit of money. I was like, that was just icing on the cake. And then I started getting asked to speak more and do little events, and really enjoyed it. So I got this idea to write a book. So I wrote a book. It was called How to Flip a House. And part of it was I just wrote it because I was getting busy. Guys were asking me, hey, can we do breakfast? Can we do lunch? There just comes a point in time where I can't do any more breakfast or lunches, right? Like, I got to just focus on my business and my family. So it just is kind of fun. I wrote that first book. It took me like 3 years, and it was not a lot of fun, to be honest. But I'm like, all right, I got a book done, published author. Cool. Mark that off the kind of the bucket list kind of thing. And anytime anyone asks me, hey, can you help me do it? You do. I'm like, yep, read my book. And I started using it like that, where I could kind of screen people, see if they're serious or not. Because if someone asks me, hey, can you help me? I'm like, yep, read my book and then give me a call. Very, very, very small percentage of people, right, actually call you back. Hey, I read your book. But every time that I say, read my book, call me back. Every time that someone has done that, dude, I help them, coach them, mentor them, whatever I can do. So
Right.
that was, but what happened with private money was I began raising private money in 2009, the very first year that I went into and went full time into real estate. And I was
2009. What a hell of a time to jump in.
uh, my job. Yeah, my dad, had worked, a corporate job, so to speak, his entire life. And he's like, what the hell are you doing quitting your job? It was like a Fortune 500 company, and all this kind of stuff. He thought I was crazy. And I'm like, I love my dad, but at the same time, I'm thinking, Dad, I've seen you get laid off at least a dozen times over the years. We lost our house, foreclosure, bankruptcy, all that kind of stuff. That's what I saw my parents go through. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'll go ahead and try this real estate thing out. But so that's when I went full time, and so I started going to just different networking events, self-directed. We have a very influential self-directed third-party company that helps people invest their self-directed IRAs, and they're very active in doing workshops and stuff like that. So I began raising some money from there, but I saw some stuff where, one, there was just a massive opportunity, meaning there's a ton of money out there, and private mortgage lending, most people don't know about it, right? Financial advisors, they're not pitching it because they're not making money from it. The banks sure as hell don't want people to know about it.
Right.
Wall Street's talking about it. So I saw a big opportunity, and a big opportunity, and really very little awareness.
Right.
So when I was going to these networking events, they'd open them up, how, hey, if you have a deal, you want to come up, try to wholesale a deal, raise money. And I'd see these guys go up, and dude, they would violate every kind of, philosophy. And they get up there with like a sheet of paper, and they're like, I got a deal, just reeking of desperation. Like, I need to close tomorrow, and I need this amount of money. And, I think I'm going to flip it. Maybe I'm going to rent it. I don't really know. It just a lot of uncertainty, desperation. And it was just, and I wasn't that kind of guy. So my philosophy ended up just, hey, here's what we do. If you're interested in learning more, come talk to me. And that worked pretty well. But, I'm just a big lead with value guy. And the more that, I learned about, who my avatar was from a private lender, got to know them a little bit. The biggest thing is fear, like fear of, investing in something that they don't understand, investing with someone maybe that they don't know. How does it all work? Just all those, they had all these questions. And I ran the same thing with, fledgling real estate investors, like, hey, I don't have time to go meet with all these people. And so I just took the time out. I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to explain it all out, because the more that people are educated and understand something, fear subsides, trust increases. So I took time and wrote a book. I was like, I want to answer all the questions, show them the pitfalls, things to avoid, how to screen investors. I did not make one, pitch for anyone to invest with me. Obviously they know how to get in touch with me, but that was it, man. Just lead with value and truly just take that approach to private money. So that was really it. Because nobody makes money from books.
No.
When Max and I were talking, I was like, all right, Oprah Winfrey, Joel Osteen, and that's about it. That's about all makes money.
I mean, if Dwayne Johnson goes and writes a book, I'll read it. It's all about attention and influence, and the more you have. But like we talk about books, I wrote this as a lead gen. It's the same thing. Like, if you want to work with me, read the book first. This saves me 3 hours, right? You know all about me. You know my process, what I did, and yours is a little longer. I'm assuming this is closer to a 5 or a 6 hour book.
Yeah,
and so.
At a time, and so it's on Audible also.
Oh, thank God! Did you read it?
Oh yeah, but no, dude, no way. I did my first book. I put on Audible, and I did the first chapter. Dude, it was brutal. So I found a whatever you call them, and a narrator, and he read the book. And he read the second book as well.
Nice. All right. So I'm looking forward to listening to your first. Did you put the first chapter out there, or do you have a little foreword at all?
I did. Yeah, I give the foreword, and then I hand it over to my man, Randy Hames, which was funny because he was a radio DJ in Houston, and I grew up listening to this guy. My mom's friend used to drive us to school. She always listened to this guy, and called a local, like the closest recording studio, and it was Randy. So so Randy narrated it.
That's wild. So that's cool. You get to work with one of your heroes. He makes you sound great. So now I'm even more interested. I love the audio version of books like this. Once it gets to a certain thickness, and this has that gauge, this is audio approved for me. So I love it. And I love your story of how you got to it. You saw a problem in the marketplace. You said, you know what, I'm going to serve the need. You didn't pitch anything, but what you did is you put your name on there. You put a contact information for yourself. And one thing you hinted at earlier, I don't know if you noticed this, but you're talking about wrapping around the mortgage, right? A wraparound mortgage that you did. And you hinted that the private money, the lender you were borrowing from, was at 7% interest. Now, I've raised private capital. I've raised about 1.6 million in private capital, but I wasn't paying 7. I got some of that at 12 and 2.
Well, that's what I used to borrow at. I started at 12 and 2, even more, and it was basically hard money. And over the years, we've stepped that down. We've stepped that down. Part of it's been the market, and then part of it, has just been that's the conversations that we have. We've created a good little amount of demand. That particular deal, I had a lender that was loaning to us at 7% for 7 years.
Wow.
Only. Yeah. And they allowed us to wrap it. And, so what I say a lot when I speak about private money is you can often tell the experience of the borrower by what they pay for their money. And I'm doing some private lending now. We did about 25 loans last year.
Wow.
I loan 12 and 2, and sometimes higher. But I say that you can tell the experience of the borrower by what they pay for their money. So newer investors a lot of times will pay 12, 14, 15%, pay 2 or 3 points because of their lack of experience. And if their numbers still work, their numbers still work. And that's what I used to pay. But what I teach private lenders is, is that, hey, if you want to go for 12, 14, 15% rates, go for it. But understand there's a trade-off in the risk return. And
Yep.
so what we do now is, so over the years, we've built, our database of private lenders. And when we have a deal, we don't say, hey, we're looking for 7%. We just say, here's an opportunity, reply back with your rates and terms. And I guess you'd say, let them kind of bid against each other a little bit. And after a lender replies back at 10%, 9%, 8%, if they hear no, 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 they may say, I just want to get my money work and I want it to invest with you.
Right.
So that's how we've done that. Now, one of the very first, this was way back in the day, and it really was like, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it happened. But an old business partner of mine and he taught me so much of what I know when it comes to real estate and private money. He's not in real estate anymore. He never really liked real estate. He was a marketer. So I did all the boots on the ground stuff, and he was just a marketer and kind of mentor to me. We met with a private lender, and we have, this PowerPoint presentation, went through all the slides, explained to her how it worked. And it's kind of, one of the rules of negotiating sales is, whoever says the first number first, whatever loses, kind of thing, right? And, talking about those guys that I'm seeing, and they're out pitching a deal saying, hey, we'll pay 12%. Well, all right, pay me 12%. But I found, whenever I mentioned a number first, especially when I was borrowing 12%, there's some people just didn't even trust you if they didn't know about private lending, and they're like, this sounds a little too good to be true. So we met with this lender, went through all, the presentation, and she's like, well, that looks pretty good. I think I understand it. I like you guys. You seem pretty trustworthy. So how much money can I make, with this thing? And my friend responded, and he said, well, it depends. She's like, what does it depend on? He's like, it depends on, what rate of return would you be happy with? Kind of gave her, we look for win-win deals. What rate of return would you be happy with? And she said, I think I'm making like 1% on my savings account or whatever it was. So I'd probably be happy with 5%. That's when you just say nothing. You're like, and my friend's response was classic. I remember to this day, because we're borrowing at 10 and 12% all day long back then. And he said, that's not the number that we had in mind, but I think we can work with that.
He was honest the whole time. I love it.
I've used that line so many. You make an offer on a house, or when you're talking to a seller, say what, this doesn't happen a high percentage of the time, but a low percentage of the time, they'll give you their number first. It's much cheaper than you thought you could ever buy that property for. You don't like choke or say, oh, woohoo. Say, that's not the number that I had in mind, but I think we can work with that. You're in integrity saying that, making that statement.
I love that. I love staying in integrity when we're in an appointment, and holding our cool at the same time. So Brant, that's phenomenal. That may be a future book. The Brant Phillips Book of Negotiations. It's not the number that we had in mind, but we might be able to make it work.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that. So Brant, where are you going now? Where do you see your future? We just came out of COVID. I know I personally made some changes on my portfolio. I was selling some stuff off prior to COVID. Now, during COVID, I said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hold. And now I think we're coming towards the end of it. And I've come up with this strategy of I'm going to sell some of my condos to buy some bigger buildings and run with multifamilies and mixed use. Where do you see us going? And I know this is 100% speculative, but we do speculate on some level in this business.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going? What is your strategy right now?
100% affordable housing, 100% affordable rentals, affordable housing with owner finance. And, going back to that every couple of years, adding a layer on or a different strategy on, I got introduced to mobile homes, mobile home parks, and mobile homes on land, several years ago. And a friend of mine was doing really well with it, and I wasn't really paying attention to them. And then I really stopped and looked at it and learned that Sam Zell's the number one His company owns the number one owner of mobile home parks in the U.S. Warren Buffett owns Clayton Homes, also owns 21st Century Mortgage, the largest financier of mobile home manufacturer of mobile homes. So I was like, there's something to this.
Sam
So
Zell. Yeah, I mean, you're just listing billionaires, dude. Right?
he's a beast, and so I started looking into it a couple of years ago. Last year we bought our first mobile home park, and we bought our first RV park. Today I'm excited. We're closing on a 51 lot subdivision. That's it's basically gonna. Right now there's about 6 single family homes out there, and there's about 10 or so mobile homes and a few RVs that we're gonna remove, and we're gonna make it affordable housing community. And 100% on that. What really, there's just so much data information that I was really beginning to get excited about, like the mobile home park model, especially when I heard Sam Zell talk about it. I was like, yeah, dude, it's like, it was a no brainer for me not to at least, explore, do a few deals. But the funny thing with Sam Zell is, this dude has owned, been the number one owner of like commercial buildings, skyscrapers, freaking malls, apartments. So he has sold off. I've been told he's sold off about 50% of his multifamily and his retail commercial type stuff. He's sold off about half of it, and he's kept half. I've been told he has never sold a mobile home park
Yeah.
since the 80s. And so you start reading all this, and then also there's much less competition. So that's where I'm at. But I'm a big believer of affordable housing, whether that be, in development and rentals and multifamily. And for me, like that's kind of, I'm going down the rabbit hole with the mobile home manufactured homes right now.
I love that, Brant. That future that you're painting. Me and my business partner, we sit down and we say, where's the world going? How can we help? What need can we survive? Not survive, but provide for. And what can we do to expand our business? And one of the things it's a wall we've been hitting. And I think you just solved it for me. This wall we've been hitting. We're saying, well, inflation is about to crush a lot of people in America. We know, and it's gonna pummel the economy. Middle class is gone. They don't know it yet. They don't even know it yet. A year or two from now, they're about to get destroyed. And what can we do to help? Right? Do we cut our units in half the size so we can still maintain our rents and our mortgages, but provide cheaper housing? Like, what do we do? And I think what you just said, I think the mobile home parks, I think we're going to see people going to those smaller houses, those mini houses, and creating communities where it's all about, hey, it's more about lifestyle and less about the house you have, and just being able to have a place to sleep and shower and eat, but then use the world as your playground.
Yeah.
Is that, do you agree with that assessment?
100%, 100%. And then the cool thing too with the whole, let's just be honest here. The word or the phrase mobile home park does not have a positive stigma to it.
Not even close.
Whatsoever. It just doesn't. So the first 2 parks that we bought, they didn't help the stereotype out. I'll just put it like when we bought them. But that's been our attitude since we've come in, is like, hey, no, we're not going to put up with some of the stuff that the stereotypes, right? And so we have very clean communities. We've invested a lot of money fixing the roads, signage, lighting, getting out the bad guys, the drug dealers and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a lot of work, but there's one of our communities, it's called Pine Ridge. You can go on Facebook, Pine Ridge, AHC, which stands for Affordable Housing Community. This weekend, we just put in a park. Like, we got picnic benches, a grill, a little tetherball for the kids. We're adding swing set, slides. Dude, it's a great place. It is a very, safe environment. It's surrounded by all these trees, and the people are like raving about it, so it's been a lot of fun where, hey man, let's face it, there's lower income, poor folks, whatever you want to call it. And whether the economy is doing great or whenever we're in a recession, like we're officially now into a recession, there's going to be poor folks. It doesn't mean that they have to live like a third world country. I mean, we're still in the United States. let's give them clean, functional, safe, affordable housing. And dude, it's been a lot of fun, and it's challenging. Like, we walked our property yesterday that we're closing on today, and you talk about a place that has just been, it's slumlord, man. It's been slumlord. And this seller, I think he's friends with me on Facebook, dude, like, not knocking the, but is like, he inherited it and they've done nothing to it. And we met with our contractor yesterday to do the road work. Yeah, it's like, $100,000 worth of road work that has to be done.
Yeah.
Potholes like this deep. And it's just a one straight shot road. And I asked the contractor, and I was like, dude, have you ever seen a road this bad before? And I'm expecting him to say, yeah, it's not that bad. He's like, dude, no, I've never seen a road this bad in my life.
This is, Brant, this is as bad as they get.
I need
potholes on the potholes.
Dude, it's so bad. So we have a work cut out for us, but we've already got message. We met with a lot of people, just kind of walking the street yesterday and talking to people, and there's a lot of people excited. They're excited, just to get the roads done. Dude, the trash company will no longer go down the road. So people, it's so bad. Like, there's trash like out in front of people's yards because they haven't burned it yet, or they're just too lazy to burn it. The mail delivery will not go down the road. An ambulance got stuck. Ambulances will not respond down the road anymore. Amazon, forget about it. So people are excited. Just, oh my God, you're gonna do the road work? Well, yeah, we're gonna do the road. We're gonna do lighting. We're doing cleanup. We're doing this and this and that. It's fun, man. There's a lot of opportunity there because, it's if you're buying an apartment complex, you're probably buying it from someone who's got a decent amount of real estate education, maybe another very experienced investor. We're buying these things from mom and pops for the most part.
Yep.
And so that means there's a lot of opportunity for us.
Brant, you've got me interested. I'm going to start looking at the mobile parks in my neighborhood. There's not too many of them up here, but I'm hunting now. I'm going to see what's in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, see what we got. Maybe Connecticut has some.
Pennsylvania's a good market. Yep.
I'm going to look at Pennsylvania now. Yeah, Brant, what an amazing interview, man. I feel like I just barely scratched the surface of the person you are and the knowledge you have in your head. And I know we're gonna have to do this again at some point in the future. But I just want to thank you for coming on, spending your time with us, giving us so much value. Right before you go, I always, at the end of our podcast, I like to ask, what are the 3 things that you would go back, if you go back to 20-year-old Brant and just say, hey, this is, if you learn this or do this or have this principle or skill in your life, this would improve your life. What 3 things would you go back and give yourself for information?
Okay. So sometimes I'm a slow thinker, so I'll make sure I answer this right. So if I was going back 20 years ago, I'll mention Stephen Covey again, put first things first.
Yep.
So I would begin with the end in mind, where I fell into a trap of, pursuing wealth and money. And for a period of my life, I damn near lost it all, meaning my relationship with my wife was not a good father, my health was not good. So first things first, right? Begin with that because our health, our relationships are so much more important than money. Number two, clarity is so important. And I really didn't figure out what I wanted to do until I was, in my early 30s. And so I'm very glad I found that focus then, but I would love to have had that focus in my 20s about, and just, just begin to think bigger and dream bigger. Cause I just, in my 20s was like, this, being super successful and creating a company and being a real estate investor, that wasn't even on my radar. I just didn't think that was for me. I was humbling beginnings. That was it. And then, so the focus would be the second thing, and it would have been on real estate. And third, it's all for naught if we're not helping people and building a legacy as well. So just incorporating that earlier and sooner. I mean, I don't care where you're at. For people who are just getting started, if you've done one deal, help someone who's done no deals. If you've done 10, help somebody else. And just teach and lead from where you're at, and commit to continually evolve and grow and expand, and just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, Brant, those are 3 solid pieces of advice. I appreciate it so much. I have found those all to be aspects that if I knew them earlier on, if I could meet Brant Phillips when I was 20 years old and you dropped those 3 nuggets on me, I don't even think I would have appreciated or understood them when I was 20. But if it was like on a clay tablet, like a Richest Man of Babylon, right? You just dropped it on a clay tablet. It would have helped me in my journey. So
yeah, like my kids, man, like I don't think they're not picking up anything right now, but that's okay. I know they are, even though they don't realize it, but yeah, I get it.
it's all in osmosis. You're dropping it in. So Brant, what's the easiest way for somebody to get in touch with you, to learn more about you, to jump into your coaching program, or find out some of the things you're doing? What's the easiest way for people to get in contact with you?
BrantPhillips.com. Keep it simple.
Nice. I love it. You know what? BrantPhillips.com. Focused. One thing. This is what I do. I love it. Thank you so much, Brant. I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your energy, your giving personality. You've really opened my mind, and I know that there's people listening right now. You're on Facebook Live, but I'll add this to the podcast later on. You've really inspired me, and I know that I'm blessed and thankful to be a part of the EXP team and in your downline. So thank you so much for your time, brother.
Man, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Can't wait to meet in person, man. As soon as things open up there, I told Max, man, let's book a flight, man. Let's come work together. I'm excited to meet your team, and man, greater things are yet to come, my friend.
This is just the beginning, Brant. Thank you so much, man. I will see you soon. Hey, when you have a choice, always work with the best.